Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I am your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Thursday, July 2nd, and this week, different prices for the same ride. Uber expands background checks, and the honeymoon is over. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Bryant, happy 4th of July weekend.
Happy 4th of July weekend, Jared. It's going to be a hot one in Chicago. I'm excited to celebrate the birthday of the country and, hope everybody has a good, safe time.
Yes, it's a hot year. It's hot topics. I think that's the word of the quarter. It's hot. Everything is. Everything's heating up between AI and Waymo and the fights that we're going to discuss. It's a wild time here to be in the rideshare news business, which is hilarious.
Hey, you know what? Are there two better people for the challenge here? I don't think so.
I mean, according to Torsten, there are not. we are the voice of the rideshare news, which I love to hear. So
every time I need an ego boost, we just bring Torsten on the show and he talks stuff. So I really appreciate it, and we need to do it more often.
Seriously, I never feel so good about myself as when Torsten highlights all the great work we're doing and how great Legal Rideshare is. So, Torsten, you are the best. Thank you for always supporting us. But yeah, I think let's jump right in because honestly, these topics are really interesting. And again, love to hear your insight from this. And this first one is one that everyone has talked about for years, but this company really dug into it. And the big question is, why does the same ride cost different prices? And this is from Consumer Reports, and they reported, quote, Uber and Lyft, the two of the most popular ride-hailing companies in the U.S., routinely charge different customers significantly different prices for the same rides. And this is a months-long Consumer Reports investigation found out. Across the routes we tested, the median difference between the lowest and the highest price grouping was 42%. Nothing small there. Uber and Lyft deny that they engage in any fictitious pricing, attributing our findings to real-time marketplace conditions. But the pricing practices observed in our Uber and Lyft tests are different from dynamic or surge pricing. Because our volunteers booked identical rides at roughly the same time, the dramatic price differences we saw can't be explained away purely by the economics of supply and demand. The article goes into a lot more detail, but basically sums up and says there is a simple reason companies like to offer different prices to different customers for the same thing. It enables them to increase sales and profit. So this is arguably, Brian, a smoking gun into the age-old question, are they price gouging? Why are the prices different? And more importantly, what does that mean for drivers as far as what they're losing monetary-wise?
Yeah, this is just another example of shady behavior. It does not get to be explained away by surge pricing. If you've got two people standing in the same spot at the same time pushing request ride and you've got the same destination, there is no reason why the ride should be anything other than identical, and if not identical, within pennies of each other. We have heard stories about different neighborhoods being charged more than other neighborhoods, or even people with iPhones being charged more than people with other devices. So it just seems like there's too many coincidences for Uber to say, oh, there's nothing going on here, nothing to look at. I can't tell you that I have the smoking gun or the technological knowledge to explain it, but it just doesn't pass the sniff test. And when we're looking at the numbers in the raw data, like this article is providing, it's just one more piece of evidence that something shady and nefarious is going on.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk away 42% difference in pricing. I think the other thing that would be interesting, they don't discuss this, obviously, they were focused on the consumer side, but if they're doing these sort of huge price discrepancies against just everyday riders, what are they doing to each driver? They have all the data, they know each driver, they even know the data behind how the driver drives, probably even the necessity of the reason for driving. There's no reason in my mind, if they're doing this, that they can make these huge ranges, that they wouldn't charge two of the same drivers vastly different prices, given if the one driver benefits them more financially than the other.
Certainly.
You know,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and it kind of leans into their whole data privacy, right? Like they don't want people to see their data, and maybe this is a big reason why.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think by hiding the data, they hide the answers to these questions. Uh, we've seen situations or heard of situations where drivers are taking about the same trip and being paid different amounts, and we've seen situations where the company, charges the rider one amount and obviously pays the driver a lot less. So there's just all sorts of pay issues and pay discrepancy and pay shielding where the company just has a total lack of transparency. And with transparency, I think there would be so much more trust in the company if they would just tell people what's going on. If there really is nothing nefarious going on here, then show it. Prove why there are these discrepancies. Prove why one person pays more than the other, or why one driver gets more than the other. Maybe there is a reasonable explanation, but Uber is certainly not doing anything to benefit its public image by keeping that information private, because it just lets articles like this come out that seem to show that they're acting in a way that doesn't benefit the public and the consumer base.
Yeah, I agree. There's just no way that 40% swing in marketplace conditions at the same time. It's just not. That's just not a thing. So, again, I'd love to see more data on this. Like you said, I'd love to see what their response, besides just, oh, this is just how it is in the marketplace. And I'm sure more articles will come out like this. So moving on, the next story, which is another interesting one, Uber is ramping up their background checks, and this is from Bloomberg. And they reported, quote, Uber is tightening driver background checks in the U.S. and applying the new standards retroactively to existing workers. The company's latest response to a wave of sexual assault lawsuits brought by passengers. So starting Monday, Uber is expanding the number of criminal convictions that will disqualify a driver or courier from working on its platform, regardless of when the crime occurred. The policy will lead to the removal of tens of thousands of existing gig workers, or about 0.5% of the active force in the U.S. Uber had 10 million drivers and couriers worldwide as of April. So this seems to be a response into a lot of the lawsuits and sexual assaults brought by passengers. It seems like they're just sort of saying, all right, fine, we're going to just drop the hammer on everything. I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know what the driver base opinion is on this. And I don't know if my opinion is going to be different than the majority. But I would say that this is one of those jobs where if you're going to have be connecting passengers and drivers, strangers riding together in cars, that safety needs to be the top priority. And I have no problem with the increase in the background checks. I think it's going to, as the article says, it's going to result in many drivers being removed. But frankly, these are the sorts of barriers that should have existed before being allowed onto the platform in the first place. We need to make sure that safe drivers are paired with safe passengers. We need to make sure that the company is using available information to keep everybody in the vehicle safe. There are, I certainly believe in second chances. I don't want to make this seem like I'm not cognizant of the fact that people change and people might have convictions from the past and have changed their lives and become, upstanding citizens, no problems at all for many years. But when it comes to rideshare, when it comes to strangers being paired, this isn't the job where chances can be taken. And, if perhaps there's different standards for couriers than from rideshare drivers, perhaps there's different standards for food delivery. I'm willing to take a nuanced look at it. But if we're just talking, is there a criminal background, particularly for violence, for things like assault, sexual assault? It's not the job that person should have. I mean, so I don't know. I don't know how the driver base is going to feel about it, but that's my position.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like you said, the bigger issue here is this should have been in place, long time ago. And so the only thing that I can say to add to that is that it's unfortunate because people who've had the second chance and now have created a life, a livelihood on Uber are going to lose their job, and they're not going to know why, right? And by the time they figure it out, it's going to be something that they were told is not a problem, and now it's a problem. It should have, if that was the case, it should have been, they should have said, look, this is from day one, sorry, not day 4,000. Hey, now you've been great and rides are great, but we're taking you off.
Yeah,
I think
that's a great point.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue here.
It's a great point, and it's not fair. This Uber has fought background checks forever, and the reason for that is they wanted to increase their driver base. They wanted to have as many drivers on the platform as they could. They wanted no barriers to entering the space. That was good for business. That made rides relatively cheap because there were plenty of rides available. So this was a business decision by Uber to have a low barrier to entry. And now, once again, by shifting their position based on public pressure, based on many assaults that have happened, there have been safety issues. Now there are going to be plenty of good people who have had great experience and high ratings and done great work on the app. They're going to lose their job, and that's horrible. But Uber should have had these higher barriers to entry from the start.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure there'll be some driver pushback, and who knows? We'll see how ultimately Uber handles this and the press and the response. We'll see, but it's starting next week, so it is going to be brand new. And as I always say, time will tell. And our final story this week, Bryant, it looks like the honeymoon is over for Uber and Waymo, and this is from Reuters, and they reported, quote, Uber and Waymo have ended their self-driving partnership in Phoenix as the ride-hailing giant prepares to launch a new autonomous vehicle collaboration in the city. Phoenix is our first pilot market with Waymo and was intentionally limited deployment, reaching just over a dozen vehicles dedicated to the program. That's what an Uber spokesperson said. Uber said it is readying the launch of a separate autonomous vehicle partnership, but has not named the new partner. The end of the partnership follows Waymo's recall of nearly 4,000 robotaxis in the U.S., something that we discussed last week. So it looks like the gloves may start really be coming off here. It looks like they're starting to separate. This is their first, I believe this is their first partnership in the first city. They're pulling out. This is the beginning. This might be the beginning of the end of this.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the cities starting to push back a little bit. We're seeing that the safety issues, the recalls, the cities are starting to feel a little uncomfortable with what they've brought in. There's, I'm sure, a lot of political pressure from the general public to say these cars are not safe and we need them off our roadway, and that's ultimately who the city answers to. I would like to see more and more cities take this position of, you better prove you're safe before you come to our city, or if you're already here, you better prove you're safe if you want to stay. I applaud Phoenix for being proactive. It is difficult to reverse course. That said, I think, as you mentioned, they were one of the first to get in bed with Waymo. So they rushed into the decision to bring them into the city, and now perhaps you could say they're exiting that partnership a little late, but they're doing it. So maybe other cities can learn from this experience that Phoenix has had, can say, we need to put up better guardrails before we let this new technology in, because we don't want to be put in a position where our people are unsafe. We've got all these cars causing problems on the road, and we need to reverse course and kick them out. So, ultimately, I think it's a good story because it shows cities standing up for themselves, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and it's also, this is the first partnership with Uber and Waymo, and so they're also breaking in Phoenix. They're saying, hey, we're not partnering anymore. Do your own thing. You have your own issues. And then Uber is saying we're going to have. Uber even says they're readying the launch of a separate autonomous vehicle partnership in Phoenix. So it's a complete split now. So they are breaking up, and this is a very interesting time because we'll see what Uber does moving forward with this.
Yeah, and I think my take was slightly off there in terms of the city, but Uber is taking a stance as well, and I think that's really important that Uber is demanding better conditions when it's putting its vehicles on the roadway.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, those are the stories for this week. So, of course, Bryant, we will give you the final say before we head into the July 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, we always remind everybody to keep Legal Rideshare's contact information handy. God forbid you find yourself in an accident over the holiday weekend. Please reach out to us. We can help you with the claims with the insurance company. We can ensure that you're compensated for medical treatment, lost wages, pain and suffering, any other damage that you sustain. We always remind people that time is of the essence. These matters do not get better with time. We want to be able to start the claims process right away, ensure that you have a solid foundation so that you get recovery for everything that you're entitled to. LegalRideshare.com has all of our contact information, and you can actually contact us right through the website. So please do not hesitate, and have a safe and happy holiday weekend.
Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.